Welcome to another edition of Boxing Info, the comeback edition. Just the FYI on this, I'm going to try to go all the way back and review the fights from as back far as May 7th forward, do a preview of this weekend's fights and other notes in the news since then. This may take up to an hour. So let's rewind all the way back to May 7th, pay-per-view card, Las Vegas. Kelly Pavlik won a comeback fight since his loss to Sergio Martinez over Alfonso Lopez. It was a very sloppy fight. I thought Pavlik did enough to edge Lopez out, but Lopez, you know, in his mind probably had good reason to think he was robbed in the fight and he deserved a decision. But just sloppy, and with Pavlik, I think it'd probably be in his best interest to go back to 160. As I just read, Jermaine Taylor's coming back after almost 2 years gone from the sport, in order to compete at 160 pounds again with his former trainer who got him to the title, Pat Burns, which should be good for him. Also on that card, in a huge surprise, Jorge Arce scored a TKO in the 12th round over Wilfredo Vasquez Jr., the defending WBO 122-pound champion. This one fight, no matter what can be going wrong, maybe not whatever, but minor things going wrong in your day or your life, to see a veteran who's basically been pushed aside, former champion, can be used as a stepping stone, and all of a sudden up he comes with the upset. And the thing about this is, I remember telling a couple of you on the channel that this reminds me very much of when Jesse James Leija was counted out and he gave Hector Camacho Jr. the scare of his life, and then he validated his comeback by basically upending Panchito Bojado before mixing with Costa Zoo and Arturo Gatti. But the thing about this is, it just brought, right from the first round, you knew something was going to be different, because Arce was in Vasquez's face. He did get careless at the end of the fourth round, got clipped with a left hook and went down, jumped right back up and resumed the attack. I think this is one of those cases, I'm going to talk about this about Devin Alexander later on, that I think the hype and the pomp and the circumstances surrounding Vasquez Jr. I saw him fight in a 4 or 6 round fight a couple of years ago on a pay-per-view doubleheader, a low-rent pay-per-view doubleheader, which had Edwin Valero highlighting the show and Jorge Linares in the co-features. It was coming from Mexico, and I thought the local Mexican fighter, who had about 10 losses, actually beat Vasquez Jr. I know he's been polished up and shined up since then, but again, this was hype, and Vasquez just powered through him. Close fight, could have been going either way going into the last, the championship rounds, but that's what Vasquez, I should say Arce, excuse me for that. It's Arce was just powering through Vasquez Jr., and it was in the championship rounds that Arce really turned it up, especially the 11th round. He had Vasquez hurt really bad, and Vasquez Jr. never recovered going into the 12th round when Arce jumped on him. The thing about that was, it was a strange sort of stoppage, much like a week or two before when Juanma Lopez lost his title. The referee stopped the fight, but Vasquez Jr. is a young fighter who's getting hurt, and his corner wanted the fight stopped anyway. And it was an excellent win for Jorge Arce, salvaging already a championship career, but one that many people thought he was being used as the stepping stone, proverbial stepping stone. Manny Pacquiao won what I would think is a shutout decision, although the judges did not agree with me, over Shane Mosley, who looked to me to just basically be showing up for a payday. This was a horrendous performance by Mosley. How much of it was Pacquiao? How much of it was the fact that Mosley just is past it now? He's not competitive at the elite level. This is 2 out of his last 3 fights where he's fought the elite in the sport, the top 2 or 3 pound for pound in the world, and he's not even competitive. What are the takeaways from this fight? Well, if you're a Pacquiao supporter, this is great, because there are 2 positives from this fight over the Floyd Mayweather fight with Shane Mosley. One is Pacquiao didn't come close to getting hurt by Mosley like Mayweather did in the 2nd round. The other thing is, in the 3rd round, Pacquiao drilled Mosley to the canvas with a left hand. Nowhere in the Mayweather fight was Mosley ready to go down, or basically in trouble of going down. So basically a very commanding statement type fight by Manny Pacquiao, and we'll talk about Floyd Mayweather more. Next up for Pacquiao, as I have read, Juan Manuel Marquez has been drawn out of the Golden Boy circle because his contract expired, into the same type of situation Mosley was brought into, where he's operating as a free agent, and he's signed for November, I guess, pending a tune-up fight win to fight Manny Pacquiao at a catch weight. And this is what I have a problem with, because I don't think above 135 pounds this fight is going to be competitive. I think Marquez will make it interesting for a little while, and Pacquiao is either going to plow past him for a clear-cut unanimous decision or possibly stop him late. I don't think Marquez has the power, and he definitely does not have the speed he once had at 126 or 130 pounds. And this is going to cost him in this fight. At 135, you are pushing the limits of how competitive the fight can be. Because remember, Pacquiao was explosive against David Diaz. They're not even in the same league, comparing Diaz to Marquez. But the fact is that Pacquiao is just as dynamic at 135 as he is at 140 or 147. Marquez is at his limits at 135. We saw what happened when he fought Mayweather. It was almost like he had like a spitball shooter. He was shooting at Mayweather. He hit Mayweather flush, and nothing happened. I mean, he didn't even make Mayweather blink. I mean, and he even said it after the fight that he couldn't hurt Mayweather. He's not going to be able to hurt Pacquiao either. I know a lot of you purists are going to say, well, it's the boxing and it's the geometry and the physics of the sport and the sweet science of Pacquiao missing and Marquez making him pay. Pacquiao has, since he last fought Marquez, and some of you will say he was weight trained, he has basically gotten his feet under him. He doesn't lunge punching anymore. He doesn't throw punches by lunging anymore. His feet are set. Now, can Marquez outbox him in a case where both fighters' feet are set and they're basically on their toes and moving and circling? It's conceivable. But at some point in the fight, Pacquiao is going to land that straight left hand on him, even if it's not with crazy power. We know at 126 pounds and 130 pounds that Pacquiao can hurt and do damage to Marquez. We know at both those weights, Marquez can get Pacquiao's attention and even hurt him. The problem is this: at 135 and above, Pacquiao can still do the same damage to Marquez. Marquez can't stop Pacquiao with his offense. That's just one person's opinion. Let's see how it plays out. I think this is, I think it's going to be more competitive than Pacquiao's fights with Mosley, Pacquiao's fights with Hatton, and Pacquiao's fight with Joshua Clottey. I don't think it's going to be as competitive as his fight with Cotto, but it's going to be probably close and similar along those lines. Let's just be clear about that. Let's move on. On the 13th, Kendall Holt on ESPN2, I believe, scored a third-round TKO over Julio Diaz. This was a quintessential crossroads fight, because the situation was this: one of the two of them was going to move on with their career, the other one was going burning in ashes. Julio Diaz basically finished. Kendall Holt, legal problems outside the ring, an amazing account of himself against Timothy Bradley. My situation is this: on that, this guy can get back into the mix and be mixing with the Amir Khans and the Timothy Bradleys and the Zab Judas and the Lucas Mathesis, Devin Alexander's, all the guys in the 140 division, if he can get his head screwed on straight. A good win for Kendall Holt. On the 14th, Andre Ward, in the semifinals of the Super 6 Super Middleweight Tournament, scored a clear-cut, unanimous 12-round decision in Carson, California, over Arthur Abraham. Arthur Abraham got off to a quick start until, Ward kind of figured him out, found the distance to fight him, and basically was no contest after that. My takeaways from this is, Ward obviously, since he beat Kessler, has been the odds-on favorite to win this tournament. B, Abraham and his people, I'm probably sure, are probably sorry they put him in this tournament. You make good money defending the IBF middleweight title in Germany over and over and over again. You have a hard time coming back from clear-cut losses. Now, in 3 consecutive fights, basically. You got the Durrell fight, which was, a bunch of BS. He was about to catch up to Durrell and stop him when he hit him when he was down. He shouldn't have done that. Then you got a clear-cut loss to Frosch, which was unexplainable. And now this clear-cut loss, which obviously, the odds-on favorite to win the whole tournament is the one administering that loss. So for Abraham, I would advise him to follow Jermaine Taylor and hopefully Kelly Pavlik back to 160 where he belongs. Ward, he's the favorite to win this tournament. He's going to be facing Carl Frosch. I think if they can make this fight on neutral turf or over in Europe, it's Frosch's only chance, because I don't think, even going to California, it's not that Ward has a massive advantage over anybody else, because obviously a lot of the crowd was Armenian that was rooting for Abraham, and he had a lot of the crowd. It's the fact that you've got to, I think that these guys have to get Ward out of his comfort zone. I mean, Timothy Bradley had fought all his professional fights in California before going over to the UK and winning the WBC title, from Junior Witter. So why is it this guy keeps getting the fight every freaking fight at home? I don't understand it. And if I'm Carl Frosch and his people, I would not agree to fight him on the West Coast. I mean, make Andre Ward come east, at least to the East Coast, if not overseas. I mean, I can't. They could sell out an ungodly live audience, and Showtime's the one televising it, so it's it's guaranteed to be sold. If they fought in the UK, I mean, Andre Ward doesn't necessarily draw massive amounts of people to these arenas in California. I just think this is quasi. I expect even on neutral ground that Ward has the edge over Frosch, but I think enough's enough with this home cooking. Enough is enough. All right, on the 21st of May, over in the UK, I'm going to talk a little bit about this. I normally don't do this. This is a fight between 2 prospects that a lot of noise was made of. The second coming, James DeGale, who some of you thought could walk on water. Some of you compared him to the second coming of Mayweather with his great defensive skills and his boxing ability. Took on his amateur nemesis, George Groves. And James DeGale, I saw interviews on Hoodia's channels, and several of others of you promised a knockout within 4 rounds, promised a decisive victory, promised this and that, and talked trash like there was no tomorrow. And Groves, to his credit, just stood his ground, said, "I've beaten you before, I'll beat you again." Now, the fight itself was kind of a quasi-disappointment. I had to watch it in replay, but I can see DeGale winning this fight, or deserving to win this fight, by decision. He landed the more authoritative punches. But, in the same hand, this is where we're going to get into when I talk about Devin Alexander. Expectations, and a cloud of expectations. Did Groves really overperform, or did DeGale really underperform compared to what our expectations were? And although I didn't buy into this second coming crap that most of you did, and I'm not talking to all of you, I'm talking about a lot of people from the UK that were talking up DeGale. He may still be better than Kell Brook, as I was asking Dirk Diggler, but the thing is, when you talk as big as this guy, you better back it up. And with Groves did just enough to stay away, just enough to offset DeGale. I thought Groves hurt DeGale in the 9th or 10th round of the fight, could not follow up. I think Groves fought brilliantly from a tactical standpoint of using just enough movement, just enough defensive technique, and just enough boxing ability. He, like some of you said, if he landed 5 punches, you'd be surprised. But the thing was, boxing sometimes is more about that. And I understand this. Let me preface this by telling you this. I thought DeGale deserved to win the decision. Okay. Understand, I'm watching this fight knowing the result already, and also wanting Groves to shut his mouth. Okay, that's my perspective. Even with that said, I thought DeGale deserved to win the decision. I think the decision could have been a draw, and everybody would have been happy. And, Groves got the nod, and people are still okay with it. I'm okay with it. It could have gone either way, but I thought DeGale won the fight. All right. the expectation of everybody was that DeGale was going to blow Groves away. All right, I understand they want to match these two again. Here's a better idea. Wait until each of them has fought for a world championship, a real world championship, and either won it or get turned back, and then fight them again. When they get to the championship level, I want to see what they're like, not as amateurs, not as fledgling professionals. I want to see them as either journeymen or master craftsmen. Right now they're in the apprentice stage, and this was made way too early. But neither here nor there, they both performed pretty good, in my opinion. Okay, in Moscow, Denis Lebedev scored a not-so-shocking 10-round knockout over Roy Jones Jr. Here's the deal. Jones was losing the fight, laying on the ropes, and the punch that he got hit with that started him pitching forward on his face was a punch he'd never get hit with 10 years ago. Never. Can a fighter do themselves so much injustice? The answer is yes. I want to tell you people that 10 years ago, or less than 10 years ago, around 2002, 2001, whenever he was fighting John Ruiz and he just beat the ears off John Ruiz, there were writers actually saying that possibly Roy Jones Jr. would have been able to beat the legendary Sugar Ray Robinson. And at that time, I'm looking at saying, the guy is almost untouchable. I mean, he can mount offense at any time, but the thing is, when you're a skilled fighter, your worst enemy is time. That is Floyd Mayweather's worst enemy, time. George Foreman, who's big and hulking and just, telephone pole jab, slow glancing right hand. If he hits you with the side of his arm, he's going to knock you out. But, time doesn't have an effect on those guys. Time has an effect on the brilliant fighters like Mayweather, like Pernell Whitaker. Now, some of you will say, how about Bernard Hopkins? Bernard Hopkins used to be a plodding, slugging, messy, dirty inside fighter before his pay-per-view days. He's only come into this hit without being hit style since he's gotten basically on pay-per-view. But for all these other guys, time is their enemy, and I'll get more to that too. A nasty, should be a career-ending knockout for Roy Jones Jr. at the hands of Lebedev, and he was losing this fight hands down. I don't care what that one judge said. On that same night, Chad Dawson scored a clear-cut unanimous 12-round decision over Adrian Diaconou in I guess almost like a guarantee elimination fight for the winner of the main event, which was Bernard Hopkins' rematch with Jean Pascal. And nothing's different about this. The odds from the odds makers weren't any different than on this. Again, Pascal was favored. Why, I don't know. Because I picked, Hopkins to win the first fight. If I would have done a video, I would have picked him to win this fight. I thought he won the first fight going away. And he won this fight going away. Pascal is maybe a two-dimensional fighter. And once you solve those two dimensions, and you have some athletic ability of your own, as I thought Chad Dawson was doing at the end of his fight with Pascal before the headbutt and the cut happened, there's really not that many wrinkles in his game plan. And the best thing I could say about this is that Hopkins did what he, if he wouldn't have got knocked down the first time, we wouldn't be having this rematch. It was a brilliant win for Hopkins. I wouldn't buy too much into it because he's at the age where he's not going to be able to put consistent results like this back to back. And I've already heard that Golden Boy, or read that Golden Boy is balking, which means hesitating, at making the promised fight with Chad Dawson that they're supposed to be doing. I don't know who. I think that the Hopkins people are looking more towards more fights in Canada against the Lucian Buttes of the world, which I think is another big mistake, because I don't think that either Butte or Dawson are really good fits for him. A fight like Adrian Diaconou is a good fit for Hopkins, but I think it's going to be, it's going to be messy negotiations and messy. There's going to be stripping of titles and all that other kind of stuff again. Hopkins basically is the oldest, man to win any type of a world championship now at age 46, eclipsing George Foreman. Congratulations to him. Again, this is a guy who promised his mother he'd stop fighting at age 40, and that was 6 years ago. Okay, moving on. June 4th, the other semifinal of the Super 6 tournament. Carl Frosch won a majority, 12-round decision, close decision over Glenn Johnson. This is what the tournament is really about. Risk, reward, high contact fights. Two guys who are hungry for recognition, hungry to win, putting it all on the line, and basically one guy advances, the other guy has other options available to him because of the performance. You know, Frosch, again, one thing about him is that he's shown consistency. You know, his fight with Kessler could have gone either way, and I thought Kessler had done enough to get by him, but I don't think Kessler would be aching to fight Frosch again. In retrospect, I thought that Frosch, with all his trash talking, would be no contest for Joe Calzaghe. I'm not so certain anymore. I think that Frosch is going to be the decided underdog against Andre Ward, as rightfully he should. Most people in the UK are a little worried about his chances. The thing is this: if they can get the fight on more of a neutral ground, they can get officials that will, especially a referee, who will not let Ward use his head and some of the other cute tactics he's used recently, I think Frosch has at least a fighting chance. I mean, he's still going to be the underdog. I still pick Ward to win the fight, but if Frosch can land and land with power and test Ward's chin, that's what this is all about. I mean, a good win for Carl Frosch. On another card on HBO that same night, Julio Cesar Chavez Jr., on the heels of his father being inducted into the Hall of Fame with Mike Tyson and Costa Zoo that same weekend, won the, I guess, temporary WBC middleweight title that Sergio Martinez was stripped of for not fighting Sebastian Zibic, and Chavez Jr. won a majority 12-round decision after a slow start in which he caught a lot of leather, and I was worried he wasn't going to make it the distance. He gutted it out, used a very good body attack, and pulled it off. Going to be more on him with what's his future right now, because he's in the same boat that Saul Alvarez is. With, they both have paper titles, and eventually the truth is going to be right around the corner, and their handlers and their promoters are not going to be able to keep them from the truth. Skipping ahead to July 18th, I don't remember what was going on the 11th. As I was building this outline, this could go on forever anyway. Adrian Broner, card in Mexico, Adrian Broner, who had a rough, boring decision over Juan Ponce de Leon, took on Jason Litzau and took him out in the first round on TKO. This is Jason Litzau, who scored the upset of the year last year over Celestino Caballero. How quickly fortunes change. The main event saw Canelo Alvarez defended his WBC super welterweight junior middleweight title for the first time against Ryan Rhodes, who is a rough, tough contender, and stopped him in the 12th round. The thing about this is there is a difference between fighting the Ryan Rhodes and the Matthew Hattons of the world and fighting the Angulos of the world. Let me just be clear about that. Alvarez has been moved along very carefully, the same as Julio Cesar Chavez Jr. Canelo is the first, if I'm not mistaken, Golden Boy product to go from pro debut to world title. Now the situation is this: Sergio Martinez has his eyes on both of these guys, and says he will fight at either 154 or 160. I know that the Golden Boy people want to match Canelo with one of their own, which is Martinez's last opponent, Sergey Zinzurek, and that would be a much safer fight for Alvarez, and not even one that I think he would be guaranteed to win. Part of the news is Bob Arum was quoted as saying that he is willing to work with Golden Boy and make a fight between Saul Alvarez and Julio Cesar Chavez Jr., which would be unbelievable in Mexico. I'm wondering if a live gate, if they could match or come close to matching Chavez Sr.'s fight with Greg Haugen at Azteca Stadium, in which they drew 135,000 person live gate plus pay-per-view for that fight. I think it was on pay-per-view. I know Showtime was the one who broadcasted it, but I know his Camacho fight was on pay-per-view. I'm not sure about the Haugen one. I think it was. And we're talking like monster money to be made, enough for everybody to go around. I think this is a step in the right direction for top-ranking Golden Boy. I'll talk more about that. Last weekend, the 25th, 3 days ago, Felix Sturm won a split 12-round decision in Cologne, Germany over Matthew Macklin in a fight that Macklin deserved to win. Yes, Sturm was robbed against Oscar De La Hoya, as Avellino aptly pointed out. But the situation is this: that was many moons ago, and now younger fighters who have no choice but to travel to foreign lands to get the title shot get jobbed when they deserve to win. I thought Macklin put enough pressure and enough clean punching on Sturm to win this fight. Sturm is being brought along very carefully, just like a lot of other obscure foreign fighters are, and if Kelly Pavlik and Jermaine Taylor and Arthur Abraham all return to 160-pound division, that belt that he holds, that WBA belt, is going to be ripped away from him sooner or later. I like Felix Sturm. I think he's a good fighter. I just think that this home cooking that he's getting, very similar to the Klitschko's, that gravy train's going to end sooner or later. Alright, on to St. Louis, where Cornelius K9 Bundrage scored a 12-round unanimous decision over Seshu Powell, to retain the IBF junior middleweight title. This is another fighter, Cornelius Bundrage, that the Alvarez people are interested in, and rightfully so. He's a title holder, not as dangerous as somebody like, Sergio Martinez. If Golden Boy can meet it out with Don King, this is a fight that could be happening. And I like Alvarez's chances in this fight. He's very big and strong at this weight class. Tavoris Cloud retaining his light heavyweight title, or so be it, an elimination of whatever this was, with an 8th round TKO over much used up Youssef Mack. No surprise here. Only surprise is maybe the fight could have been shorter, I don't know. But Cloud just keeps on rolling. Eventually he's going to get his shot at the likes of Dawson or Hopkins, or one of them. Good win for Cloud. The main event, and I'm going to spend some time on this, Devin Alexander won a 10-round split decision over Lucas Mathis. Like the rest of you, I kind of just pushed back from my TV. I'm saying, WTF. What? I know a lot of you, I caught flack from a lot of you because I said this, back when he fought Andreas Koltenic. Alright, I went back and watched that fight again, and yes, I think Koltenic, under normal circumstances, deserved to win that fight. After I instinctively first watching it, and I wrote in my channel comments that, if you look at things from a situational standpoint, the situation is this. Alexander, when he fought Koltenic, was coming off a devastating unification fight knockout over Juan Urango. A fight with the likes of Timothy Bradley was set up to happen. He was the defending champion, he was in his hometown, maybe he was given the benefit of the doubt over Koltenic, and that's pretty much what happened. I wasn't going to forego the early work that he did against Koltenic, although Koltenic's defense was much underrated and Alexander wasn't getting through. Enough about this. But with this fight, Mathis put Alexander on the canvas. Mathis pushed the action, pressed the action, did damage, and this was over 10 rounds, so no title was at stake. Yes, Alexander was fighting his hometown, but it doesn't matter. The fighter coming forward, making the fight, and landing more damaging punches generally deserves to win, and that's how I feel about this. I think this is a bunch of BS. Don King is a bigger promoter who promotes Alexander. He's got a lot of pull, and the same thing with Koltenic. He was a European fighter coming to St. Louis. This is a South American fighter coming to St. Louis, and Don King, holds a lot of the cards. Whether there was any improprieties, I'm not saying that. I'm just saying I don't understand, why this guy keeps getting the benefit of the doubt. Because as he showed against Timothy Bradley, he's quasi, a B-rated fighter. Parading around as an A-rated fighter. I mean, I'm not taking anything away. He's got skills, but I just don't think he's got the, you know, the heart, necessarily the heart and the, you know, the intestinal fortitude and the quality parts of a true world champion or an elite fighter when things get tough. You know, I thought he definitely lost this fight, and now his people are saying he's going to campaign at 147. Avellino pointed out that that they're mentioning Malignaggi as a possible opponent. You know, there you go. These guys are just a step. You got gatekeepers like the Angel Manfredis of the world. Then you got these guys who are slightly above them. And these guys, kind of like Jesse James Leija, they're good enough to win a fringe title and maybe even defend it a couple of times, but against the elite, they're not there. They're not competing with the elite. And that's exactly where Malignaggi fits in. It's where Alexander fits in. It's no offense to them. They're still good fighters. They'll still beat most B-level fighters and below. It's just certain A-level fighters and higher they're not going to do well against. And the same thing, you know, Malignaggi, Alexander, Jesse James Leija, the same thing. You know, they're better than gatekeepers, but they're not elite boxers. I'll just leave it at that. Okay, a couple things in the news, as most of you know, and you may note on my channel. Gennaro, what the heck is his nickname? Chiquinito Hernandez, the former WBA junior lightweight champion, died after a 2-year battle with a very obscure type of cancer. And it's an understatement when I tell you that he was one of the good guys in boxing. Very well liked, very well respected. Comes from a very good family. His father was a cornerman for him, and I remember back when he fought former bantamweight champion Raul Jabaro Perez. They had a no contest in the first fight because of a butt that opened a cut on Perez's face. They fought a rematch. There was a lot of trash talking from the Perez people before the fight. And I think they fought this in the Great Western Forum, if I'm not mistaken. And Hernandez stopped Perez with a body shot in the 8th round. And Perez was really hurt, but Hernandez's father went over to make sure that Perez was okay. You know, there may have been bad blood, but this is a game and a sport. This isn't, you know, for keeps, for life and death. It's not death and hurt is not the objective here. And it just shows, you know, the true, I don't know what to say, just kindness and respect that the Hernandez family has. And all of that transpired into this one man. You know, I just can't relate how sorry I am for them, how I, you know, send them my deepest regrets. And, you know, out of this, you know, death of a great man and a great, you know, a very good champion, a very good boxer, actually brought some of the good out of Floyd Mayweather Jr., who did not want this publicized, but he picked up the tab for the funeral, because, you know, funerals these days average $7,200. I heard on some news thing. Sometimes over $10,000, which I imagine this cost over $10,000. And Floyd Mayweather Jr. had his right-hand man go ahead and get in contact with the family and tell them that he was going to take care of this. He wasn't going to attend, but he was going to take care of this. And he kept it on the down low. Somebody else broke the story. And, you know, much to Mayweather's credit, listen, he's done some evil and nasty and said some nasty things in his time, plays the bad guy. This doesn't erase any of that. It's not going to stop him from doing it again. But it should be pointed out, when the man deserves credit for being a good human being and a good, classy man, he did it. And it's because of the respect between the two. Hernandez was the guy he beat for his first world title. And it's a very classy move and a very nice gesture by Floyd Mayweather Jr. May Hernandez rest in peace. More recently, Nick Charles, who spent a career working for CNN and then was doing color commentary for, I believe, Showtime, lost his battle with cancer also, and I believe it was some type of digestional tract cancer. I forgot what the news report said. May he and his family, our prayers go out to them too. It's bad stuff. You know, it makes me wonder. I'm not going to get off subject here, but you know, the government can split atoms. They can find all kinds of ways to make biological weapons and things like that. I know damn well they've got a cure for cancer. and they just, you know, let it spread and eat people away just as population reduction or something like that. I'm not talking about the U.S. government. I'm talking about any government, the Russian government, whoever. I mean, this is just my theory that they know what the cure for cancer is. They just, you know, let it keep riding, I think. That's just me. When you lose people in your family to it, you get very cynical, and these kind of things touch you and they hurt you, and then you look for answers and things like that. Alright, unification bout in the 140-pound division, and I'm going to spend a little bit of time on this because the thing is, we're all upset that Timothy Bradley turned down Amir Khan for a fight in July. The story behind that and the backstory behind that is that when Timothy Bradley took on Devin Alexander, they were both promised, you know, guaranteed money for that unification fight, which was awful. You know, brings me back to, if you guys remember, back in the late 90s, another unification fight, and this one was at 126 pounds, that took place in Detroit for no reason whatsoever, between Prince Nassim Hamed and Cesar Soto. The fight was horrendous. The result was yucky. I mean, it was a clear-cut decision that Hamed won, and you know, there was back, you know, he threw Soto over his head one time, body slammed him, and all in all, it was just an ugly fight, just like Alexander and Bradley was. But coming out of that was HBO guaranteed each of them 1.3 or 1.4 million, I think 1.3 for the loser, 1.4 million for the winner for their next fight, thinking that if the unification fight was good, they were going to match them again in a rematch against each other. Well, the second they saw the fight unfold the way it did, they were like, you know, no way in hell we want to see these guys, you know, we really don't want to see them again, let alone, you know, see them against each other. They had a contract, it was in writing, it was guaranteed. Devin Alexander did the correct thing. He sought out Lucas Mathis, who's a very, you know, basically an action type fighter, got his guaranteed $1.4 million for fighting Lucas Mathis in a 10-round fight. It was thought that Bradley would take that $1.4 million option and fight Khan. Now, a funny thing happened on the way to the fight. Bradley recognized that a Khan fight is worth more than $1.4 million. The risk is high, the reward should be high. $1.4 million is what you'd risk fighting Alexander, or you'd risk fighting Zab Judah, or you'd risk fighting somebody else. Khan is now, he's not Manny Pacquiao, but he's climbing the rungs of the golden payday, kind of like Oscar De La Hoya. He's worth more to Bradley, more than $1.4 million. This part I agree with. Here's the other problem. If you fail to make that fight with Khan, you better go head him off at the pass, which Gary Shaw didn't do, because Golden Boy has Khan, and they sought out the next best thing, which was IBF champion Zab Judah. And Don King bellied up to the bar and said, we'll fight. Not Don King, I'm sure, Main Events is the one who owns or is promoting Zab Judah now. A very easy to work with company in the past. They and Golden Boy got together. Zab Judah asked for a couple of different things, of which they delivered on some of them. One of them was he wanted to fight on the East Coast. Golden Boy said, no, it's going to be in Las Vegas. They had to basically give in on that, and they did. So that's what you talk about compromising. The fight's made for July 23rd in Las Vegas. My thoughts on this are, I think it's a more dangerous fight for both of these guys than Timothy Bradley would be. And I'll tell you why. One, I think that Zab Judah with one punch can do more damage to Amir Khan than Timothy Bradley can. Speed and size-wise, Judah matches up better with Khan than Bradley would, for Bradley's sake. Now understand this, Bradley with his size, you know, I'm surprised they took this fight, but at the same time, I think that I think the Khan's people know that there is a means to the end, where if after this fight they've got half the titles and Timothy Bradley has the other half of the titles, then they're really in the position. That is one of the things, one of the leveraging tools that Timothy Bradley and Gary Shaw had, is that they have two of the titles. Now they've got the two newest ones, as opposed, or I should say, one of the older ones and the newest one, as opposed to, you know, having the WBC and the IBF title, or the WBA and the IBF title, which is what is going to be at stake in this fight. But the thing is if the smoke clears, and Amir Khan is the one with both those belts when this all clears, Timothy Bradley's going to, you know, I can't see him getting more than $1.5 million for a fight with Amir Khan. And it's going to be unequivocally be on Golden Boy and Amir Khan's terms, whereas he has more leverage now. The fight is not a walkover for Khan. As a matter of fact, I think Judah has a very good chance of turning over the apple cart in this fight. As a matter of fact, if I was a betting man in a place where you could bet, I think I would very much consider putting some money on Zab Judah, because I think that at some point in this fight, unlike Khan's fights with Maidana and unlike Khan's fight with Malignaggi, he's going to get hit with something he doesn't see coming. And he's going to become hit with that punch with speed and power that he hasn't seen before. Now, he's a little more stable on his legs at 140 than he was at 135, but it's the follow-up barrage that worries me for him. I don't think that he's got the survival instinct to survive if he's really hurt and rocked by Zab Judah. Now, on the other hand, you know, Khan to me is not somebody that, you know, Zab Judah's chin is not the greatest in the world, but at the same time, Khan's one-punch power, I mean, he's a wild slapper, much like, you know, I know he's changed since Freddie Roach has gotten him, but he reminds me so much of young De La Hoya, where he almost looks amateurish at certain times. You know, I don't think that Khan's got a decisive speed advantage over Judah, and it's this height that's going to tell the difference in this fight. We'll see what happens. I'll preview that fight in a few weeks. Also signed, Floyd Mayweather Jr. coming out of his shell, if he's a free man, and he still has all his liberties, to fight Victor Ortiz on September 17th. All right, you know, a lot of you are agreeable to this, and so am I. I think it's a good fight for both guys. One, Ortiz represents a young, hungry, up-and-coming newly crowned world champion who's going to get a shot at a big payday in a big fight. And I really think that it's his one big advantage in this fight, besides being a lefty with a very good left hand. Mayweather's had trouble with lefties like Zab Judah and that other guy Zab Judah fought at 140. It'll come to me. But anyway, he's had trouble with lefties in the past. He's beaten them, but he's had trouble with them. DeMarcus Chop Chop Corley is who I'm thinking of. With both of them, it was the right hook from a blind spot. The same blind spot that Shane Mosley hit him with a roundhouse right hand and hurt him. Note to Victor Ortiz, it's going to be your right hand from a wide angle that will win you this fight or get you in a position to win this fight, not the straight left hand. Because over time, in the course of the fight, when Mayweather judges the distance and he sees where Ortiz is launching the left hand from, he's going to be able to avoid it and counter it. First gut instinct is that Mayweather's going to win this fight, you know, going away by decision. But as I was telling, I believe, Rich, I forgot what your new handle is. It used to be Lemon Light over in the UK. Time is Mayweather's worst enemy, and he's been off a long time again. Hunger is Victor Ortiz's biggest asset, and what is going to happen in this fight, I expect this fight to go very much like Roy Jones Jr. and Antonio Tarver won. There may be people who think Ortiz should get the decision. Mayweather, on his legend, will probably eke out the late rounds, separate himself in the punch stack categories, and win a very close decision. That would be my guess. I don't expect Mayweather to come out and just bomb out Victor Ortiz, and I don't think, in order for him to do that, he's going to be in danger of getting hit from those blind spots I mentioned. So expect the fight to go the distance, and expect Mayweather to eke it out, very much like, remember, I called it here first, very Mayweather by a decision, just like Jones Jr. over Tarver in the first fight. Alright, I've covered the news things I want. Preview of this coming weekend's fight with the heavyweight division, the ring title on the line, as well as 3 of the 4 major belts in the division. Vladimir Klitschko defending his WBO, IBF, IBO Ring Magazine belt against WBA paper champion David Haye in Hamburg, Germany, in a massive soccer stadium. Alright, this fight is less than a few days away. What are my knee-jerk reactions? I've been telling all of you this forever. Klitschko by knockout. Klitschko by knockout. Alright, let me play devil's advocate here. What if everything David Haye says is true? What if everything, all the hype from the United Kingdom is true? And what if Klitschko cannot deal with Haye's speed? What's going to happen? Well, when Klitschko has lost before, he's lost 3 times by stoppage. Okay, let's examine that. Ross Puri basically stood up longer than Klitschko did. Basically a journeyman. Klitschko punched himself out, was stopped in the 11th round. Alright, he's a much different fighter. He's had 2 metamorphoses since then. He morphed into the killing machine he was until he met Corey Sanders and Lehman Brewster, and he's morphed again into this Emmanuel Stewart boxer behind the jab thing. So we throw that one out. The Corey Sanders fight. This is the one that applies to Haye, because he went at Corey Sanders, who was throwing punches from a position he wasn't accustomed to, from a southpaw stance, although Haye is conventional, with speed and power. Now understand, if we had a scale to weigh, like Justice is Blind, that kind of scale, if we had a scale to weigh the power of Corey Sanders' left hand, poof, and David Haye's right hand, we'd be looking like this. They're not equal. Okay, David Haye is a cruiserweight moving up to heavyweight. And just because you can whack out Audley Harrison, and you can whack out a couple of other jokers, and barely make a dent in Nikolai Valuev, doesn't mean you've got the power that Corey Sanders has, because he doesn't. Let me be very clear with you people about this. He does not. That's it. If he had that kind of power, he would have blew John Ruiz away like David Tua did. He doesn't. Alright, let's be clear about that. Number 2. Does David Haye have the power of Lehman Brewster? Alright, we put Lehman Brewster's power on the scale, and it starts weighing down. Then we put David Haye's power on the scale. Alright, they start leveling out a little bit. But David Haye's power is not equal to Lehman Brewster's either. Okay? And in that fight, again, Klitschko threw 70, 80 punches around trying to get Lehman Brewster out of there, and punched himself out and allowed Brewster to catch up to him. Alright. Does David Haye have the puncher's chance? Yes. And I personally think he has better than a puncher's chance. The problem lies here. Vladimir Klitschko has fought many title fights in which Lehman Brewster got a rematch against him and didn't lay a glove on him. Hasim Rahman, who is very similar in size to David Haye, maybe not in the skill set, but definitely in size, height, reach. He's got some power. Never laid a glove on Klitschko. If Klitschko wants to play keep away from David Haye and harpoon him with his jab for a good 8 or 9 rounds until he's basically softened him up, he can do it. Sam Peter in the rematch, again, never got close enough to land the power. So in order for David Haye to win this fight, it ain't going to be from playing a chess match. It's going to be from basically taking a high risk of bull rushing Klitschko and just nailing him with wild shots. In the process of doing that, he's going to have to eat jabs and eventually take a right hand on the chin. And in my amateur opinion, I don't think David Haye's chin is up to the task. I never thought it was. And it's going to be a dismal letdown for a lot of people. If Haye pulls this off, it'll be a dismal letdown for me. I just don't see it happening. I think that he's under Klitschko's skin. Emanuel Stewart is the X factor in this fight, because if anything, he's going to tell Vladimir, under no circumstances do you go back to fighting the way you used to fight. You stick to the plan, stick behind your jab, throw right hands, and I'll be honest with you, I think Haye's smart enough to know he's got to stay away from Klitschko's right hand, and he can probably take it away from him. Klitschko knocked out Ray Austin without throwing one right hand. The problem for Haye is going to be that educated left hand of Klitschko's. He's going to get hit with jabs, he's going to slip jabs, he's going to get hooked off the jab, or he's going to get hit with a left uppercut. I wouldn't be surprised if Haye gets knocked out very much like Lennox Lewis did it to Michael Grant. Everybody thought Michael Grant was the next coming, and he was big, he was strong, he was powerful. He was going to offset Lennox Lewis. And what did Lennox Lewis eventually do? Knocked out with an uppercut. So I'm standing by my guns here. I do think that Haye has a very good chance, a very good puncher's chance, but that's about it, because it's going to take more than one shot of Haye's to get Klitschko out of there. I mean, think about this. Corey Sanders drilled Vladimir Klitschko on the chin with probably the single hardest shot punch in boxing, and he got up 4 times. He got up. Do you hear me, people? He got up. Sam Peter hit him with his left hook. He got up. Layman Brewster hit him with his left hook. He went down and got up. Why do you think that David Haye's going to hit him and keep him down? You're fooling yourselves. Because he has to hit him with full impact while Klitschko's coming to him and he's coming for that to happen. That scenario should not play out in this fight. It might. I highly doubt it. Those of you who you are praying and counting on it are in for a big surprise. Now, could this fight be a snooze fest, like Klitschko's fight with Sultan Ibragimov? Yes. Don't rule that out, people. But I expect Klitschko to win this fight and win it comfortably. And that's going to be it. I'll try to do a recap show on this, especially if I'm wrong. But I think that when we watch this fight, you're going to see that, David Haye has been hyped to where he is. Vladimir Klitschko has been taking the long, hard road, and I think as far as intelligence and education and things like that go, you got Vladimir Klitschko here, you got David Haye a step above the gutter, basically, as we would say in New York. He's a step above the gutter, and this is his one chance at a massive payday. I won't believe they're fighting until they both get in the ring, because it hasn't happened yet. But that's going to do it for this show. I'll be back, folks.